Hello and welcome to Audiobooks with Anna. I'm your host, Anna Clements, and in this episode we chat with Adam Fritz, CEO of POZOTRON. Adam shares his story with us and insights into how the POZOTRON software can help us. Take a listen. Adam, welcome to the sofa.
I'm literally on my sofa, so that's a good...
Well, me too, so that's perfect. Comfy cushions and everything.
Fantastic. Exactly.
I was going to go for the cup of tea, but I have a glass of water because I'm recently returned from the States and I have no idea whether I'm coming or going right now, so it's quite the adventure.
Who doesn't love a little jet lag, right?
Absolutely. Let me open with my favorite question of all these chats, which is, tell us about your favorite emoji.
Oh, my favorite emoji. It is 100% the facepalm emoji. I use it.
Nice.
I think it says a lot about what you're trying to convey. Facepalm or thumbs up are the two that I use most often.
Excellent. I strangely have the celebratory emoji on the top left-hand corner of my selection. And I'm always surprised when I see it because I'm like, really? I celebrate that much? But apparently the phone doesn't lie. So.
I think that speaks to your relentless positivity. But I'm actually a bigger believer in, I use GIFs or GIFs. I use them way more than I use emojis.
Interesting. I think that must be a personality trait, actually, because I have several friends who are big GIF or GIF users. And my sister, on the other hand, is a huge emoji user. And she will send 3 rows of emojis, all different, all suggestive of something. And sometimes I have to call her afterwards and go, I'm sorry, the second to last one, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, my kids, when they were much younger, they used to if they got hold of my phone, I would find a message to someone random that was like, 8 lines of just random emojis as they tapped as many buttons as they could.
That's fantastic. Let's start at the beginning and welcome Adam Fritz, CEO of POZOTRON, to the sofa here on Clubhouse. Thank you very much to everybody who's joined us. I'm going to do a recap in about half an hour so that we all know what we're talking about and what we're up to. But apart from that, mostly this is just a get to know Adam and get to know POZOTRON. As usual, if you have any questions, do feel free to put them in the chat. If you'd like to come up and chat with us, we would love to hear you and see you up here on the sofa. I will engage with you and grant you a green badge in exchange for your question or your comment. And do feel free to screenshot the screen on your phone and post about it on social media. I'm sure there's a phrase I need to come up with about sharing is caring, and telling your friends is making amends or something. I'm not sure. I'll work on that. So Adam, welcome to the sofa. Thank you very much for joining us today. Pre-POZOTRON, talk to us about Adam Fritz. Where are you based and what are you about?
Well, I'm born and raised in Vancouver, Canada. So I've lived in Vancouver for 32 of my 38 years. And I moved around a bit, did my undergrad in Montreal, Canada.
You said about your undergrad, and I'm aware that you studied, I believe, she says, having stalked you, obviously, on LinkedIn, that you studied history and psychology, excuse me, at McGill.
I did, yes.
And I'm fascinated by that choice. It's what my daughter studied at university, coincidentally. And I'm just wondering, 15-year-old Adam, did he see all of this coming? Was there a plan?
Was there a plan? 15-year-old Adam did have a plan. 15-year-old Adam was planning to be either an NHL hockey agent or the general manager of the Vancouver Canucks, which is the NHL team in Vancouver. I'm very Canadian. And I actually I went to McGill for history and psychology, expecting to go to law school. Because if you look at a lot of people who are in either running sports agencies or working on the hockey side of a professional hockey team, a lot of them have law degrees. So I went to McGill expecting to go to law school, did my LSAT and did fine, and was planning to go to law school, and then went and shadowed a couple of my dad's friends who were lawyers. And then, they take me for lunch. And as we're chatting, without fail, every single one of them said, if you don't want to be a lawyer, do not go to law school because you will hate every minute of it. And in retrospect, my now ex-wife is a partner at a law firm here in Vancouver, and hearing about her experience in law school makes me realize all of my dad's friends were 100% correct, and I would not have enjoyed law school. So 15-year-old Adam did have a plan. I ended up actually working after my MBA in professional sports for about 7 or 8 years, more on the business side, so running sales and marketing or sponsorships and advertising sales. and then more in an executive capacity. And I got out of that industry because of reality of that industry is you really need to move a lot to move up, because in Vancouver, for example, there's really only 3, maybe 4 professional sports teams if you count a more lower level team. So I would have had to move all over North America for sure to move up as fast as I wanted to. And growing up in Vancouver, I knew that I wanted to stay here and raise my kids here. So I kind of fell backwards into the technology industry, to be totally honest. It was a bit of a happy accident.
Yeah. The only thing I know about Canadian hockey is Michael Bublé. So I apologize for the the lack of information, but I know he's a Vancouver Giants fan. So,
he is, and he actually that's impressive. He actually owns a good portion of the Vancouver Giants as well. It's funny. There's a Canadian brand of seltzer water called Bubbly, with Bubly, and Michael Bublé does a great advertising campaign where he's trying to change the name to Buble and call it Bublé. So yeah, that's
it's all over Europe. I don't know if it's not in America, but yes, no, he is. I am a huge fan, and so well done them. So you're planning to take over the world with hockey, and then.
So I actually took a 7-month. So back when my first son was born, I took what was planned to be a 2-month paternity leave. And I actually got, right before that was supposed to start, I got laid off along with my whole department at the company I was working for. So I got a 7-month severance package. So I took a 7-month paid paternity leave, which was definitely fortuitous timing. And as I enjoyed a ton of really amazing time with my very small son, Ethan, who's my oldest son, I was kind of trying to figure out what my next step would be. I knew I was going to get out of sports, and I reconnected with the CEO of a company that I worked for, my very first office job right out of my undergrad. And they were looking for an operations manager. I took a job with a software and hardware manufacturer in the casino gaming industry. And honestly, expecting the job to be something I did for 3 months and moving on somewhere else. And it started going really well, basically from day one. And then 4 months in, I was promoted to chief operating officer because our COO left. And then the rest is history. It was a really good fit between my skills and experience and what the company needed. And I realized when I was quite a bit younger, I needed a job that had a ton of variety, where I thrive off problem solving, and where every day is different. If I'm doing the same thing day after day after day, it drives me absolutely nuts, and I get bored very easily. So the software industry, and specifically an operations role, really spoke to that, because literally every day I was solving a new problem and interfacing with either a new customer or a new member of my team that was having an issue. So it was a really good fit for skills and experience. And then the company that I was running, our biggest customers were cruise lines. So Carnival Cruise Lines, Royal Caribbean, Princess Cruises, all those. We licensed our technology to them. And then during COVID, with all of the cruise ships shutting down, our revenue at one point was down 99.6% year over year. So the company just was absolutely demolished by COVID and the impact it had on our customers' businesses. And I came across a job posting when I was looking for new jobs from this company called what I thought was POZOTRON, but obviously POZOTRON, and I just applied online for a chief operating officer role, and met online with our founder, Jake Poznansky. And within about 5 minutes of the first call, he says the same thing as well. We just had an immediate good vibe and good, our values were matched. What the company was looking for and what my skills and experience were was a really, really good match. And had a couple interviews and was hired in 2020, started in 2021. And it's been just a fantastic ride ever since. I loved listening to audiobooks, and I knew literally nothing about how audiobooks were produced. And so it was a real steep learning curve in just talking to as many of our customers as possible. And that's how we get to today, running Positron.
Mm-hmm. Back me up to the step into Positron. I mean, it is super important to work with people you like, and to actually, have that kind of, connection with people makes it feel like it's supposed to be, doesn't it? But what was your impression of what you were doing when you came in? Were you looking to run the firm and it would have been irrelevant what the software was? Or was the connection something to do with how interesting and the place that the software was at? Because I'm aware this is mid COVID. This is right in the middle of the madness, as it were. And did that affect the choice too? Was it that you were able to do it online?
Yes, I mean the remote nature of the job was really attractive. I was actually, to be honest, not looking originally for remote positions. I was looking for positions in Vancouver, and once I expanded my scope of my job search a little bit, I came across Posotron pretty quickly. I would say the things that really attracted me. I'm not the kind of person who could ever work at a ball bearing factory. I need some level of. The only way I can really describe it is when I worked in the sports industry and I'd go to a party and someone would say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'd say, "Oh, I work for the Vancouver Whitecaps," which is a major league soccer team that I worked for. It would be immediately someone would be interested in what I was doing. And it's less of an ego thing. It's more just I feel the same level of interest and pull towards the business if it has that level of uniqueness, I guess. And I think the thing that really attracted me most to Posotron was the audiobook industry was really unique and interesting. But B, there's huge growth opportunities as well. But the thing that really attracted me most to the company was just the my values in terms of what kind of company I was looking to build, in terms of using AI to help people, not replace people. All of those things really matched with my values and what I was looking to do. So those are the things that really drew me in. And then more than anything, personally with Jake, he is probably the most brilliant developer I've ever worked with, but he also was very well aware of his strengths and weaknesses and was looking to surround people that complemented his weaknesses. He's looking for a yin and yang essentially, and that's very rare to find. So immediately I could tell that not only would Jake and I be a good team, but he was someone that really I respected a lot and I could learn a lot from. So those were kind of the things that pulled me in.
That's so interesting I'm going to say two things. I'm going to encourage you, if I may, to not use the words artificial intelligence and instead to say software. It makes me happier, and no other reason. And fantastic that Jake was the kind of person who was sufficiently self-aware and was able to acknowledge the parts he was missing and therefore make such a great sort of puzzle piece fit to help the company move forward. I'm aware that I met you I believe it was at APAC, that first March 21, perhaps. I'm not actually sure where we met, but I know that at the time I was absolutely fascinated by this software and the fact that for the first 3 or 4 years of my career, I had been doing all of this work myself. I had been literally, trawling through these hours of editing and nightmare that most narrators do when they begin, because we believe that we can't actually afford to ask somebody else to help us with it. And suddenly this piece of software came along that at the press of a button would do a lot of this work for me without coming up to date, as it were, because I'm aware that Posotron has changed and shifted a lot over the last couple of years for better. Talk to us about as you came in, where was it situated sort of within the industry, and how much, I'm aware that your role, I feel, is much more of a marketing role and a look what we can do for you role, rather than a sort of an explanation of the software. Is that something that you were aware was going to be part of your role when you came in, the kind of front guy?
Yes, definitely. It was very clear to me backing up, when you look at a lot of startups, the early employees are almost always just developers. And I don't know how many software developers you've worked with. This is a broad generalization, but generally public speaking is not necessarily their number one skill set. And so Jake was very clear to me on what the expectations were in terms of they needed someone who could really start driving relationships with the big publishers in the industry, and get more traction there and close some of those business to business sales opportunities. But they also, quite frankly, for a long time, there'd been a lot of, charitably call it angst in the industry about what Posotron was doing, and how we were using, I'll listen to you, how we were using software to change the audiobook production process. And there was a ton of people who believed that no matter what the company said about our terms of service and what we do with customer data, a lot of people were convinced, or maybe not a lot of people, but a vocal minority of people were convinced that we were going to eventually pivot into synthetic voice technology. And no matter how many times we said it, we would still get people, on Facebook groups or whatever, saying that, you can't trust a technology company, essentially.
There was a lot of fear that I think Posotron got included with, unfortunately, that people don't like change and nobody liked or likes the new things that are happening. And I think it's been difficult to separate out those who have our backs and those who say they do and then turn out not to. And I think it was there was a lack of trust, wasn't there, initially, to sort of understand what was going on and how it was all going to work.
Exactly. And I think people are because there's been so many examples of when technology companies can't be trusted. And I'm listening right now to a podcast about the lawsuits going on. I think there's 42 states suing Meta right now about some Instagram stuff. And we hear so much about all these technology companies that don't have our best interests at heart, that, it's completely understandable how people could be predisposed to not trusting technology companies.
I'm just going to give everybody a minute or two's notice that I'm about to ask a question about the software itself and kind of how it works. So if you are able to and would like to, do feel free to sit at your desk and open your posotron.com. The link is at the top of the page. If you wanted to have a look at what it is, as I'm hoping that Adam will sort of lead us through so what does it do? Before you do that sort of specifically, can you give us an overview of when you came into the company and they described to you what it did? How did that feel? Like, what did that mean for you? Or did you just spend a lot of time learning at the beginning, as a lot of us do, I guess?
So definitely a lot of time learning. I can't tell exactly what I thought of the technology other than having literally zero experience in audio content creation before I joined the company. One of the things that Jake had me do is from day one, and actually we do with all of our employees who come on board, is he had me choose something to read, anything, and actually go through and produce from the pre-production, looking through for pronunciation, recording my own audio, proofing my own audio. He actually had me go through that process and figure it out myself using Posotron. And it taught me a couple of things really quickly. One, the jobs that you all have are incredibly difficult and time consuming. And two, it really made me realize immediately how helpful our tool could be to speed up that process. And I would say, for however many, millions and millions of audiobook listeners that are out there, very few of them actually understand how difficult your jobs are. So when I go out and explain what our software does, the best analogy I can use is imagine how difficult it would be to write a book today using a typewriter versus how much easier that is using Microsoft Word and Grammarly. So I use that as the best analogy for what our software can do to make audiobook production easier, to describe it to someone who has no idea how audio content is created.
So I'm just going to take advantage here, I think, and recap that we're talking here today with Adam Fritz, who's the CEO of POZOTRON, the software that a lot of us use within the audiobook industry to, I want to say pre-proof, but we actually use it to proof our books ahead of it going off to an actual human and to the editors and masterers of this world. And I'm hoping that Adam will talk us through what I'm hoping is a standard pattern that you have about what does it actually do? How does it work? And how would one use it?
Of course. So I've never done a demo without visual aids, so we'll see how this goes.
It just makes it doubly exciting, Adam. That is the challenge of the day.
We are a software for audio content, so doing an audio-only demo is very fitting. So really what our tool does, when you start, if you do happen to have a computer in front of you, you get to you log into Posotron, you get your main page there. There's a Create New Project button up on the top right. That's blue. And so what you're going to do, you're going to click that button, choose your project title, and then upload a script. And that script can be PDF, EPUB, or Word format. And once there's a few other settings down the bottom, once you click create, what our tool does is it processes that script regardless of format, does a couple things. One, it processes all the words in the book, and we run a couple algorithms on it to extract difficult to pronounce words. So we have a few different categories to pull out character names as well. And what this does, this actually fuels our script prep tools. So if you've got your project created, you can go on the top little bar there. There's a button you can press that says pronunciation. So if you click on that and then click another button that says open suggestions, what this does, this gives you an output of every word in your script our algorithm believes your average narrator may not know how to pronounce. So that's complex words. We have a couple different ways we grade word complexity, complex words, foreign words not in the same language as the book, and then capitalized rare terms. So generally proper nouns that are capitalized in the book and uncommon in the language. And then once you go through and you parse that list of suggestions, every word you add to your research list will be automatically researched for the correct pronunciation in any of the dictionaries that we support, Merriam-Webster, Oxford, or Forvo, and we will be adding more as we go. We also have a character tool that will allow you to select all the characters in your book, add them to your character guide list, and then what you can do there is take cues from the book on how to perform that character, whether it's vocal cues about the pitch or tone of the character's voice, and then actually record a sample of you as a narrator speaking in that character's voice. And there's a bunch of different use cases for both of these. One, the better you prepare, the fewer pickups you'll have, because you'll be more accurate in pronunciation and consistent with your character voices. But a lot of our tools are designed to enable collaboration across different project stakeholders. So, for example, you're doing a project on ACX directly with the author. You can go and do all of your pronunciations or all of your character guide work, and then actually share that project with your author, and they can go in and listen to make sure before you even start recording your pronunciations for character names are correct, or that the voice you've chosen for a main character matches what's in that author's head. So really, it's not only a prep tool, but also a collaboration tool for all your project stakeholders.
I must just interrupt and say I've used this particular section of the software twice, not on two separate occasions, but in two different ways. One is as you mentioned, in collaboration with an author who actually was able to then record her pronunciations of the made-up fantasy names that she'd written and upload them so that I could use them as my point of reference, because of course they didn't exist in Merriam-Webster or Oxford or Forvo, so they were customized, for want of a better word. But the other one, which is the thing I love, is as a collaboration with a fellow narrator in a duet case. So you're narrating an audiobook with another narrator, and we had chapters where each of our characters appeared in the other person's sections of the book. And so we were able to upload a sample of us speaking that character's words so the other person could listen in and refer back to accents or vocal tics or whatever it was that we were using to be able to standardize the sounds across the book, which worked really, really well and saved me having to, make MP3s and send them through and then hope they might reply to my email. I was able to just go, the information's there, log in, it's yours if you want it. If you don't want it, it's your call. And it's a really nice way to kind of have almost a middleman between you that allows you to kind of put up information there for each other to check back on as and when you can and will, because people aren't necessarily recording at the same times or within the same time frame. And so whoever goes first, gets to actually leave their information there, which has been really useful for me. So thank you for that one.
Oh, you're most welcome. And I think a lot of what you're speaking to, there's a concept in business called a single source of truth, where everyone who's involved in a project knows exactly where they need to go to find things. And that's really what, especially with the pre-production side of things, but we're really trying to go across this with all of every element of our tool, is that regardless if you're the narrator, the author, an editor, proofer, whatever, you know exactly where to go to find things, and that's inside of Posotron. One of the things when I started with the company, we had a very, very rudimentary pronunciation guide, and everything else we had was on the proofing side of things. And one thing that really jumped out at me, having had a lot of conversations with narrators in my first couple weeks and months on the job, is that you are not, in many cases, you're collectively not compensated for doing things like pickups. And one of the things that really jumped out at me was, if you say you send your first 15 to the author and they give you an approval, but then at the end, once you deliver the entire book, they say, you know what, actually, that main character's voice is awful. You need to go redo 400 lines of dialogue. If that was me, I would say, well, no, sorry, that voice was in the first 15 and you approved it, so you're going to have to pay me for that. And one of the initial thoughts on all of these reports and everything on the pre-production side was you would have, proof that you had actually shared the project with them. And we haven't actually done this, but the ability to actually force someone to click an approve button on each of those character voices or something like that. So then if they do come back to you, you can say, well, no, sorry, you approved the voice of Sherlock Holmes. I'm sorry, but if you want changes, we're actually going to need to, you're actually going to need to compensate me for that. So that was some of the original thought behind it, was just getting buy-in before you even start recording on all the pronunciations and character stuff to make sure that you as narrators can be properly compensated.
Wonderful. And as we know, authors are entitled to change their minds even if after they have agreed to stuff. So that is an ongoing source of of contention, I think, between us sometimes. But more often than not, it's about the prep, isn't it? It is about doing the work ahead of time. So assuming we've done this research list of words and we've got a character guide list, what happens next?
So then you're going to use all that information to go do your recording in your DAW, whether that's Pro Tools or Audition or Audacity, whatever you'd like. Then once you've done your recording, you're going to upload those audio files if you're on your main project page, there's a gray section with I think it says drag and drop, if I remember correctly. And you're going to drag and drop those audio files, which can be MP3, WAV, or FLAC format. Generally, we suggest separating those audio files chapter by chapter. And then what that's going to do, our software is going to match that audio to the appropriate section of the text that you've uploaded, the manuscript you've uploaded, match the two, and give you an output of every mistake you've made. So those are 5 categories of mistakes that we find. First one being missed words, so words you omit in your reading of the script. Added words, extra words, filler words that you've added into your reading of the script, mispronunciations, pauses longer than 2 seconds, and we've actually launched, it's currently in beta, but noise detection as well. So any non-vocal sound. And then what you're going to do, you're going to open up your chapter by clicking the open proofing button, and then on the left side of the page, you will see what we call the annotation pane, which are these individual cards with a timestamp and some details of the mistake. And each of those annotation cards is matched with a red underline in the actual script. And so you're just going to go through each of those annotations, which is what a positron suggestion in terms of what might be a mistake. And you're just going to decide, is this okay? Doesn't require a fix, either because it's something that isn't actually a mistake, or something that's so minor it doesn't require, absolute word perfect, as some books do not.
I'm just going to jump in there because for those who listening perhaps to the replay, there are production houses who require a word-for-word narration of the book. There are production houses who decide that as long as the meaning of the sentence hasn't been changed or hasn't been changed sufficiently to change the story, they're happy to let it go. And so this decision about how many of these discrepancies between the vocal production and the written word is actually a human decision. There has to be a moment where, and sometimes there are typos in the manuscript, and so we may have narrated correctly, and actually it's a discrepancy, but because the manuscript is incorrect. So there has to be a moment at this point where somebody has to sit down and go through these things and say, yes, I want that changed, or no, I'm happy to omit that. I just need to ask you, this is the actual only real question I have for you about the whole software, is there appear to be levels of scrutiny that you can set the software to. And it appears that some of the production companies I work with either don't know that or are setting it so high and then not checking it by a human that some of us are receiving enormous packets that really shouldn't be being sent to us. Can you talk me through, is that a thing about sort of levels of scrutiny? Or have I made that up?
No, that is definitely a thing. So I'm going to go back in time to earlier. I said, often in startups, all or at least the vast majority of the employees are on the development side. And that's no different with Posotron. So in many cases, when we onboarded, going back to 2019, even 2018, when the company launched commercially, many of the companies we brought on, putting our hand up, we did not do the robust training that we should have done to make sure that these companies knew exactly how to use Posotron. And so in many cases, what these companies were doing was going through and marking every single one of those Posotron suggestions as a pickup. So, at the beginning, when our algorithms were nowhere near as robust and well-trained as they are now, a narrator would get a pickup package with 200 pickups in a project because that user, the person who proofed it in Posotron, just clicked pickup on every single one of the suggestions that Posotron made, instead of going through each of those and actually listening, does this require a fix or not? And so there was a lot of understandable frustration from narrators who got a pickup list with 10 times the number of pickups there were, and we got a lot of flack for that, even though that was users not using Posotron correctly. The proofers, I should say, we didn't do a good enough job of training our customers. Unfortunately, narrators bore the brunt of that. So we've spent a lot of time training our customers, but we've also added, just as you were alluding to, a sensitivity setting. So you can actually set your proofing and noise detection sensitivity separately to relaxed, normal, or extra sensitive to control exactly how sensitive or finicky you want our algorithm to be.
I must just comment that it really is simple things like having done my own positron proofing for a public domain book. The last 3.5 to 4 seconds at the end of every chapter, positron will say, this is longer than 2 seconds, are you happy? And all you have to say is yes. And actually that's what you're talking about, isn't it? Is that idea of a pickup that, or a discrepancy that's being flagged, that somebody should have sat down and gone, this is a discrepancy I want. This is a thing I want to have happen. So please let that be. And that was pretty much the issue that was ongoing there.
And that's actually a good point I wanted to just touch on is, why our tool is not designed to replace human proofers is that what software, to not
Nice.
to not use the 2-letter word, what software is not good at is software is very good at black and white things. It is not good at context or shades of gray. And so if you look at an individual pickup, or let's say a pause is a good example, if there is a 2-second pause at the end or beginning of a chapter, that needs to be treated differently than a pause in between paragraphs, or a pause that's for pacing in a very that delivers the right tone to match what's in the actual script. And that's why software cannot do what a human can do, which is take the context and then make a decision in one situation versus another one just based on the context. And that's why we say that, our tool, there's a reason it doesn't mark everything as a pickup for you, and you as the human needs to go listen to it, use that context, and then make your decision.
Since we're at this point, let's talk a second about why people shouldn't use positron without human intervention, and tell us what it can't do, because I have a list. And it's a good list because it's something that I'm glad positron can't do, because it means that there requires somebody to go in and go, is this everything I needed? Because personally, I'm grateful for not having to sit and listen to an 11-hour book while writing down every instance of a mistake that might have been made. So when I get the positron packet, what I'm looking at is this a mistake I want to do something about? And before we move on to, actually, let's do that now. Tell us how the software delivers that information. So we've gone through this list of things that are discrepancies that we want fixed. What happens next?
So then once you've gone through, you've listened to all of Positron's suggestions, what you're going to do is go back into your project and click the Import Export button. And then there's a bunch of different ways that you can export that information. So we have something called a pickup packet, which is an online HTML-based report. All you have to do is copy and paste that web address or URL and send it to whoever you want to deliver that report to. And that includes every single one of your pickups, which includes the timestamp, the text, as well as the original audio file that you recorded. So that voice match file that's pulled automatically. We also have what's called a proofing report, which is all of that same information in Excel format, in a traditional tabular format. We also have, you can download all of your pickup audio in a single MP3 file. I think that's called the pickup audio export. So there's a number of different ways you can export that same information. Regardless, basically it's the same information and you can have it in whatever format you'd like. But then I'd say the biggest game changer from a reporting perspective is you can export DAW markers. And we support Pro Tools, Audition, Audacity, Reaper, Twisted Wave, Nuendo, WaveLab, SoundForge. I'm forgetting a few others, but there's a full list on our website. And basically what you're going to do is export those markers and import those into your DAW session. And what that will do is mark on your audio, in your audio project, in Pro Tools, for example, where every single pickup needs to get re-recorded and edited. So it'll make your time in editing so much faster, because no longer do you have to go find 42 minutes, 10 seconds, and 26 milliseconds. There's already a marker directly in your session to show you exactly where those pickups can be found.
Which for the editors is undeniably a hugely important thing. It's not something as narrators we would necessarily want to be doing ourselves, because hopefully somebody else is, organized and skilled in doing that. But I must just comment then with you how fantastic your customer service is. When I started with Posotron, I got the hand-holding session, like I like to call it. You guys are always, and you always say you are more than willing to sit down with anybody who has any questions or wants to know anything at all. And you seem to actually fulfill that statement.
Well, thank you for the feedback. That is something we really pride ourselves on. And a lesson I really learned at my last company, where we were also essentially a startup, and as all startups do, we made some mistakes, and it really spoke to me. I remember, so my company, the previous company, we would have to go install our project on these cruise ships all over the world. And there was a major issue that happened when I was not on one of these installation trips on a Caribbean island. And I got on a call with a bunch of senior people at Carnival Cruise Lines, I want to say at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning, my time. And we were working together to fix the issue. And I got a call on Monday morning. We got the issue all sorted, and we had to move teams between Caribbean islands. Logistically, it was a nightmare. But I got a call from a very, very senior person on the Monday morning just to say, Adam, I know mistakes were made, but it really said everything I needed to know about your company, that you were on a call at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to make sure that the issue got resolved. And it really made me realize that it's, in some ways, for customer loyalty and for someone to trust your company, it's almost better that a mistake or an issue happens and you fix it quickly and on the customer's timeline, not on the company's timeline. That is the best thing we can do for customer loyalty. And we've all had, as Lindsay, who's our director of operations and marketing, who I know is listening right now, she hears me complain all the time about various vendors that we have whose customer support is somewhere between challenging and abysmal. Every time you have that bad customer support experience, or that I do, I should say, it really reinforces the fact that our number one priority, beyond obviously building good technology and good software, is solving our customers' issues on time and when they need it, and not, waiting for 9 a.m. on a Monday to solve their problem. So we believe very strongly in that as a company.
So I'm just going to encourage everybody, do feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. We had Nicole say earlier on that she's had to leave now. She works in a small law firm and would never want to be an attorney. I think that was your conversation right at the beginning about law school. Craig says he's used Posotron to help him prep the script for his last 6 books, and he pays and he goes, and the time saving is well worth the fee. Or Jennifer March says, I don't think my audio engineer would work with me if I didn't put my work through Posotron first. I'm a very organic narrator and have lots of pickups. I'm getting better, though. And Barbara says, I've always had great customer service with Posotron. They're happy to answer questions, which is all lovely. Talk to us about the different ways you can use Posotron with regards to having an account, paying monthly, paying as you go.
Of course, yeah. So first off, for anyone who's never used Posotron before, if you go to our website, you can sign up for a free account, or you can use go to our contact us page, and you can book a demo with us. We'll do a free video demo. We'll show you exactly how everything works. You'll get a free trial of the software for a month to be able to try out all the features. But we believe very strongly in really flexible pricing. So we have pricing plans, everything from the pay-as-you-go, which literally there is no monthly commitment. All you do is you pay for whatever you do in Posotron. It's you only pay for what you use. And then we have multiple different pricing plans based on how much volume you're going to use inside the tool. And then the more you use, the bigger your discount. But our subscriptions are only ever month to month. So you're not locked into any long-term contract. We don't want, speaking for myself, I recently went through my credit card statement and looked at all the different video streaming services I have, and pared those back, because we all have these subscriptions that we forget to cancel, and just next thing we know, we paid for a year of something we didn't use. We want to avoid that with our customers as much as possible, because I would much rather forego a $29 subscription fee, for example, in a month where someone doesn't use us, and then someone believes again that Posotron has your best interests at heart, rather than the flip side, which is someone to realize after 4 months that they paid $29 a month for no use, and then they cancel their relationship with us forever because they're annoyed that they paid for something they didn't use. So we believe in building these long-term relationships with customers, and we do that by having these flexible pricing options.
Lovely. Talk to us then about the human interaction required, which is part of the reason why I love the software. What it can't do, or shall I tell you what it can't do? Because
I would love you to tell me that, and then I can jump in with any thoughts I have.
Somebody's just written in the chat. Oh, Lindsay Johnston says, thank you for the feedback. Lindsay's at the bottom of the page there with her party hat on because she's new to Clubhouse. So welcome, Lindsay. Thank you very much for joining us. She's from Posotron. But then Colleen has said that the rollover feature is really helpful too. And a red heart you got for that. So thank you for that, Adam. Yeah, what it can't do, which I found really interesting, actually. I know that we spoke, you and I, several years ago about Spanish language Posotron, which you have since undertaken, and several other languages too. And I was really curious about it at the time, and I still am, because what I'm aware that it can't do is a shift in accent. When my Irish bartender is suddenly speaking in a Scottish accent, and it's because I don't do Scottish accents or Irish accents very well, I need somebody to go, hey, no, that's the wrong country. You shifted there. Or when the narrative becomes dialogue and there's been no change in the voice, or vice versa, the dialogue goes back into narrative and the narrator has forgotten to shift up a gear or down a gear. And when you speak the wrong character, if your 7-year-old little boy got the voice of the old man because you misunderstood the dialogue, it requires a human narrator to go, this makes no sense in the story. And it's almost like a syntax error in a sentence. It would make sense in theory, but actually it doesn't. And Positron can't yet do that, which is why we do need to go through each of the mistakes and make sure that they are things that we want to actually fix or shift.
Exactly, and that's a great example of what I was talking about with context, where software, again, to use that word, is great at black and white. It's not good at shades of gray. And things like character accent and character voices are very much shades of gray things. We build tools to help make it easier to identify and fix some of those issues. Like we have a tool that's take pronunciation work. We have a tool called scan occurrences that will allow you to pull the pronunciation every time you pronounce a certain word in your audio file and listen to each of those words back to back to back to listen to for consistency. And in future, I could see we are building a tool actually called the dialogue detector that will allow you not only on the prep side to pull the text cues for every line of dialogue for a character, but then eventually be able to have you listen just to every line of dialogue for a character in your audio file to make sure it's consistent and accurate. But a software will not be able to say, okay, that's a great Scottish accent, or that's a horrible Scottish accent, or that's a Swedish accent, not a Scottish accent. So that's where you still need that human, I believe always will need that human touch to create that really high quality audio content, because software is not good at context cues. It's not good at that shades of gray type of information.
And I must just comment, as a huge non-fiction fan, there are plenty of places in non-fiction too where that shift in narration is required, with titles and quotes and footnotes and all sorts of things. So I don't want non-fiction to feel left out, that's all.
Exactly. And I mean, as an audiobook listener, last year, the year before, I was listening to a book about, talked at length about my sports background from professionally, but I absolutely love sports. And I was listening to an audiobook about Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, who are probably the best coach and best quarterback ever in NFL football. And there was a ton of player names mispronounced. There was a bunch of football terminology just said wrong. And it's clear that they had someone who is not maybe a football fan narrating it, and likely an editor or a proofer who's not a football fan as well. And as a listener, all of these little mistakes took me out of the listening experience, because every time I heard, Matt Castle, who is a quarterback, pronounced Matt Cassell, it just drove me nuts every time. And that's the kind of thing our tool would not be able to detect, because you need someone who knows that information to be able to help our tool find it. And I know for a fact this book was not run through our tool either. But all of those little mistakes require that human touch. They need the context. They need that information.
Well, thank you, Adam. I'm feeling very complete. I don't know if anybody in the audience would like to raise a hand and come up and say hello and chat with us a minute, or comment anything, or if there's any further questions that anyone has in the chat, do feel free to write that in. Adam, have you got any last thoughts you want to leave us with? It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for coming along today.
Thank you for having me. I'm definitely open. I've been told in the past I can be direct to a fault. So I'm a pretty open person. So if anyone has any questions about anything, I'm more than happy to answer them here or offline. I think I just want to say to everyone who joined, thank you very much for your time. And really, I am constantly in awe of the work you all do, because while I am objectively pretty good at running a company. No one, including my 2 children, would pay me to read books out loud. So I'm really, really in awe and impressed with everything you all do, because your jobs are so much more difficult than the general public understands. And as a listener, thank you for all the art you create, because I truly love listening to the work you do.
I must just take advantage and say that I've put a link in the chat and at the top of the page for a referral link that goes through my account, which I appreciate means that I get some free time. But actually, remind me, Adam, what it means for the people who use the link.
If you sign up for Posotron using that link, you will get 7 hours of free audio credits to go try out our proofing tool. You will also get a 1-month free trial of all of our pre-production script preparation tools, and basically a free trial of everything our company has to offer.
Thank you very much. And Finley has very kindly joined us up here on the sofa. Thank you, Finley. How are you?
Well, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
So much for doing this, Adam. I just wanted to add my kudos and my gratitude for the level of customer service that you provide. Usually, I am working against a deadline, and I have been amazed and so appreciative of such quick responses from you guys. And I also have been amazed more than once that, I've asked a question and was told something wasn't possible, or I've said, in the future, it might be nice to see this. And then the next time I log into the system, that thing is available, or that new pronunciation resource is available on the prep side, or things like that. So I just really appreciate how listened to I felt. And I'm sure it takes more than me making a request to get something done, but just the speed with which and the willingness that you have to listen and then turn around results is really quite something. So I just wanted to say that out loud.
You are more than welcome, Finley. I will say often what you are, if you've brought us a suggestion, we look at it a couple ways. One, if you're asking for it, there's 15 other people who are wanting the same solution and not asking for it. But I think one thing that really jumped out at me when I first joined our company and talked to, at this point, thousands of narrators and other people involved in audio production, is that everyone's workflow is different in some way. So we believe very strongly in what I call Swiss Army knife development, where our tool will mold to your workflow, rather than you having to mold your workflow to our tool. So really every time you have a suggestion, we take it to heart and we make that change, because it'll not only help you, it'll help probably a dozen at least of our other customers as well. So really happy that we were able to help you there. And just one other thing, Rosemary, I have been able to connect your account retroactively to Anna's. So you'll get that free trial as well.
Wanted to add that a lot of companies say what you just said and talk about how willing they are to listen to us and how grateful they are for feedback. But yours is really one that delivers on that. So just thank you again.
You are most welcome, and thanks for your support.
Thanks for joining us, Finley. I must just comment about the things that are being said in the chat. Rosemary says, oh my goodness, thank you so much, Adam. Craig says, thank you for stressing the human component that is still required in the process. And Susie says, as a proofer, I've utilized the software. Best part for me is the automatic creation of error audio clips and text page. That's the one item I've never been able to train other proofers to do correctly, and consistency, showing others this system helps. So people seem to be very, very happy. And Barbara says that's super fast customer service for Rosemary. So well done, Adam. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think just a huge thank you to everybody who's joined us here today. I'm going to do the usual closing of the room. Adam, are you happy? Have you got any very, very last thoughts?
No, thank you very much for your time and for everyone for listening. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot either me an email at adam@posotron.com, or you can email our team at hello@posotron.com. We'd be happy to chat with you and help in any way we can. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for joining us. Today we talked to Adam Fritz of POZOTRON. Thank you very much. My takeaways: the software is a tool for us to create high quality audio, and I for one think it's fabulous. Thank you very much to everyone who joined us today, those who came up to the sofa, those who participated in the chat. It was a great conversation. Thank you to those of you in the audience who joined us and contributed with your presence. Thank you to everyone who's listening to the replay. Do make sure to have a wonderful week, everyone. Let's go out and be our favourite selves. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Adam Fritz. Thank you very much for listening in and joining us on this podcast. Do remember to like and subscribe. It really does help. Further details are in the show notes, and if you'd like to work with me or need any further information, do get in touch. Thank you for listening.